What's up, guys, and welcome back. Oh, wow. Hang on.
To answer your question, the direction is no longer a positive one.
We saw the best version of Palmer under Poch. I think he's kind of been dropping off ever since.
I mean, I woke up on New Year's Day and I wanted to throw my phone across the room when I saw
Because I feel like a young... I don't know what's up with my throat today. Jeez.
Chelsea doing this to you.
I guess so.
But it's not going to prosper if they don't have those leaders that can be consistent throughout the course of the game. Just literally, restart the game, pull your socks up and go for it. Stop complaining about every decision.
I would like to see us challenge for the title again. I had a bit of a tirade after, because we had seen Tottenham do the exact same thing.
I laughed and then Hahu was crying the next day.
Exactly. Moments with him where he... You doing okay with that?
Started joking like you.
It's just going around apparently for Chelsea fans.
Yeah.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Blues and Hyped podcast, where we link up with other content creators and talk Chelsea football and try to have some fun. And today we have a very special guest. We have Nina Hristova from Nina's Corner, Chelsea Corner.
Nina's Chelsea Corner, yeah.
Welcome to the channel. I'm very excited to have you on. As somebody who goes to the stadium a lot, definitely have a very unique perspective that I feel like some Chelsea content creators don't really get to have, because you get to see it all live and get to see it all play out right in front of your eyes, where we're kind of experiencing it in my case, across the globe. First off, just want to give you a chance to, introduce yourself. I know a lot more people watch you than watch me, but in case there's anybody who doesn't know who you are, if you want to talk about yourself and any links you want to put out there.
Yeah, hi, firstly, thank you so much for having me on. Always good to connect with fellow Chelsea fans, even through a dark time, so that's always fun. But yeah, like you said, I'm based in London, so I've been going to Chelsea since I was 7, and big part of my family life, culture. So we're all Blues here at home as well. It's like it was Chelsea or nothing. So yeah, I grew up in North London, funnily enough. So I always got asked Tottenham or Arsenal, and I'm like, actually Chelsea. The club that wins trophies. So that was always cool growing up in school. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to go to more games in the last 3 or 4 years. I think I've gone to pretty much every home game and the occasional away day as well. So yeah, I mean, I think you're better off watching it on TV recently than being there and having to, leave the stadium feeling doomed and gloomed, making the whole trip back home and just wondering why you put yourself through it. But I think it's part of it, and a lot of fans have now said, Nina, stop going to games, don't go. And I'm like, yes, guys, but we've paid our season ticket at the start. You just keep getting drawn back because you think maybe, just maybe, something will change, and the cycle continues. But feeling pretty rough, and obviously we were chatting before we started recording how it's been a good break, and I've really used this break to just look away from Chelsea at the moment, because you'll know yourself, making content at this time can just be so very heavy, and I love doing it. Like doing it when I don't feel like it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've taken a good break.
Awesome. Just a quick little question about the fact that you get to go to a lot of games. What is your favorite away ground to travel to?
Well, Tottenham comes to mind firstly, because I've seen us win there a lot. And yeah, it's always a fun day out. So probably Tottenham. To be honest, I was at Old Trafford, which was obviously pretty awful. What other away days? Crystal Palace is always a good away day. I do like the ground, it's quite close and near, except you got the pillars that are sort of in your way, but it's always a good experience, and it's just a sort of few train stops away. So yeah, but I'm still yet to do a European away day, and judging by the fact we're out of Europe, I think that's going to be placed on hold for a little while, so who knows when that will come.
Well, I guess to kind of dig in a little bit to Chelsea, because like you said, not a good time for us at the moment, and something we're hoping will turn around soon. I guess to start off, if you wanted to give your thoughts on where you see the club at the moment, just in general on where we're going as a club, with the direction we're heading.
Yeah, we'll cue the sad music then. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, for those who have watched me, they will probably tell you I'm the most hopelessly optimistic Chelsea fan out there, and I have been since the takeover. But actually, I think this year and sort of the last couple months, I've really sort of been hit with this new reality and realisation that actually I think Chelsea are in trouble, long term, to be honest. And I think that I've taken the rosy glasses off and actually said I was keen to trust this project. I was keen to get on board and trust some of these decisions that have been made, get behind the young players we're recruiting, and sort of believe in this greater utopia that we'd be challenging and winning Premier League title in the next 5-6 years since the takeover. And actually, the fact that right now I feel like we are further away than we've been is quite disastrous. So I'm unhappy with the ownership, to be honest. I think we're all quite united in that, and I think it's real telling if you've got a whole fan base now who's on the same page with where we are with the owners and those who are making the decisions in the hierarchy. Because I mean, I don't think they've believed in this project themselves from the start. It was almost kind of like a mask to, I guess, win our trust a little bit while they're sort of recruiting players. It all feels very kind of buying players for profit purposes rather than them actually clicking in this system that we could stick around and build a very solid team that's challenging together for years to come. It feels like there's still a big turnaround. It will continue as well. We know a lot of players will leave. I think the fact that we are still in a position where it's again a season where we're in a sluggish race for Champions League football, a competition that we were just shown how far away equipped we are to compete in after the PSG thrashing. So I completely understand still wanting to secure Champions League football, but the position I'm in now is what's the point? And I know that sounds so dire, but securing Champions League football is ambitious if you want to go out and spend and attract high profile players in the summer. I don't think we'll do that. We've already shown that's not the interest that and the ambition that we're going to strive for. And then also competing in that competition, well, again, we were just shown how far away we are capable of competing against the best teams out there. So yeah, it feels like, to answer your question, the direction is no longer a positive one, to be honest. I think the reality is it's all very financially driven. I mean, you asked about the stadium experience. Prices go up for everything. Season ticket prices have gone up. My parents have season tickets in Westview. Those are astronomically high, and still you're a fan, you go because of the experience, but the experience is becoming less and less attractive to like the typical match day going fan, because it all just feels very commercial. It feels very, you know, we're not here for the football. The atmosphere has declined massively. People aren't interested in watching the football anymore as well, so that translates onto the pitch as well. The players feel it. So Stamford Bridge isn't really a fortress. It hasn't been for a very long time now, and I know it kind of goes back towards the end of Roman's tenure as well. So it's been a while, but we've had nothing really to like lift it or fix it, and actually it's going the opposite way. So yeah, I mean, everyone talks about the old Chelsea, but I feel like this is exactly what the owners set out to come and do, is strip that old Chelsea. And actually there's really nothing no longer from that old Chelsea we have, and there's no indication we're striving to get there either, if that makes sense. So yeah, overall feeling very, what's the word, doomed to put it nicely. Yeah.
It makes sense. For me personally, because ironically, I'm typically seen as one of the more negative voices whenever people get in my comment section. Ironically, I have probably been one of the more positive since the owners took over, because I did see some of the good they were doing, but definitely recently it feels like the drop-off has become steeper and steeper. And I think a lot of that is down to, they did have their plan, they did have their ideas, but the ideas were flawed. And I think there were several fans, I was one early on when they started going all young, no experience. I saw the problems with that, and we're starting to see now where not having any experience to guide these young players definitely feels like it's harmed their development in the long run. And now we are starting to see where the inconsistency is still there, despite the fact that some of these players have grown up a little bit. And I also don't think the manager appointments have really helped them either. I think Poch was the one manager that I think if we'd given him some time, I think he had the experience to help. I mean, we saw with Palmer, we saw the best version of Palmer under Poch. And I think he's kind of been dropping off ever since. So it's not been a fun time. I still have some hope. I feel like right now the fan base, while we're all united saying that the owners are not doing a good job, I feel like it is divided, and some people saying we just need to get them out. And then some people saying, even if we get them out, not much is going to change. We could probably just get other owners in that would be just as bad, because that's a lot of owners these days, unfortunately. So I'm more so probably on the side of, I would like to see them change. I'd like to see them look at what they're doing, see the mistakes that they've been making, and change some of their minds on that. As you said, the feeling is not great. When Rosenior first came in, I think we had a little bit of a new manager bounce, and that bounce is now faded, unfortunately. So, but to go ahead and talk about Rosenior, because I think that's where I want to go next. First of all, for Maresca, I kind of want to get some of your thoughts on that. Was the fan feeling in the stadium, was it a good feeling about Maresca whenever he left? You know, was there a feeling of we just lost a really good manager? He left kind of at the worst point of the season for him. Was it kind of a feeling of like we need something new because it's all kind of becoming the same with him? Like, what was the overall feeling that you saw there?
I mean, I woke up on New Year's Day and I wanted to throw my phone across the room when I saw, because I knew it was sort of creeping upon us, especially with how Maresca was sort of voicing his thoughts towards the hierarchy out in the public. I mean, you're always going to be punished for that, and there will be consequences. But you mentioned there the mistakes they've made along the way. You first appointed Graham Potter for 5 years, and you put your hands up, said, "Fine, it's gone wrong." But then what did you do? You just repeated pretty much the same cycle with the next manager. And for me, it's like, I find Graham Potter actually, yeah, I was happy he was gone. But then you mentioned Pochettino. It's all about, you never even provided any stability for a manager to even try and succeed, and that was repeated with Maresca. That was obviously, I think there was more there to say. You could probably give him the time, because yes, I know he won the Conference League, which we should have won, really fine, but there were games that he'd managed against better opposition where we saw what he could do with the players, where he could get better tunes out of them. And I know sometimes he played this dire style of football, but again, we were getting results, and there was so much more to say that we could actually go on and do something more. And it's just about spending time with the manager. And I think that's where you lose the players as well, because you appoint Liam Rosenior and suddenly they're adapting to a new coach. And fine, us fans, it's only surface level because we just watch it and talk about it, really react to it. But they're the ones who are directly working under him, like getting to know him as a manager. They're there every single day at the training ground. They're there talking to him nonstop. And that switch, especially for young players, well, how are they meant to really believe that this guy's going to stick around? Do you know what I mean? He might, because he's going to get on with the owners, and that's what we'll talk about later. But I think in terms of like losing the players, it's a massive factor. You hire the manager, well, they're going to think, well, fine, this is just going to repeat. And you see the fact that they're quite unhappy. And again, it's like you're trying to do something that's not been done before, especially in the Premier League. Like, Arteta was allowed to fail season in, season out at Arsenal. You could still argue he's not reached, he's not won the league yet with Arsenal 8 years later. However, there's still more to say that from where he took over Arsenal, the years that he was allowed to fail and work with the squad have got him somewhere. Klopp with Liverpool, same thing. You gave him the longevity. You saw what that does. Pep with City. So there's like trial and tested there, that you give a manager some time and he could succeed. But this is the thing with us, and I know that's our history as well, but these owners set out this like whole new thing and ambition about sticking with one manager, yet you've changed more than we have in the last 5 years, like before
Right.
they took over. So it's like the whole, you keep like showing us fans that you make mistakes, that you clearly like are just trialing and erroring, if that makes sense. And that's not a sustainable way to run and operate a football club. So and it's there to see in the results, right? It's there to see in the league position. Where is the progress really? Maybe, yeah, from 12th to 6th to 4th to now maybe like what, 5th or 6th again, because do we make top 4? I'm not too sure. Where is that progress really? Paper over the cracks. You won a Conference League, fine, but why were you in that competition in the first place, right? Won the Club World Cup, absolutely won't take away from that, because you were there. I'm sure you got to experience that as well out in the States. So it was a fantastic time, and we beat a very good team there. But overall, the team that we were supposed to become, like a competitive, consistent team in the Premier League, is not there, and it looks again so further away. You're looking at some of the players who were supposed to be our backbone losing, I guess, trust in the project as well. So how long do they stay? And then how do you sit down a player in summer and say, look, this is the exciting project we've got here. We're not too sure who's going to be your manager next season. That might change. We're not too sure who your teammates are going to be. That might change. We are challenging for Champions League football. Not quite ready to win. And it's like, you're not going to attract any high profile player. We know they're not interested in attracting high profile managers. That's already been said there with Rosenior.
Yeah.
And again, to answer your initial question, because I've gone down a rabbit hole, no, I wasn't happy with Rosenior. But that's those are the managers we now hire, or rather head coaches, because they're not managers. They're just surface level pawns in this big operation that's failing miserably. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's how much can you blame the manager? He's been put in this position. He's been offered a Chelsea job. Any man of his age, 40 years old, you know, so much experience, well, so much opportunity for experience there to manage and put a club like Chelsea on your CV. You're absolutely going to bite your hand off. But I mean, I don't really know what we're expecting from Rosinia, but to be honest, it just feels like we've really gone backwards. And we've had some good moments along the way that have kind of gave us that little glimpse of hope. And you've just enjoyed it and celebrated it. Like, you know, for me, the Barcelona game, absolute highlight going to that at Stamford Bridge. You know, I was on cloud nine, top of the world. I thought, wow, this is really, you know, the pinnacle right now. And then here we are right now, lost to Everton, fourth defeat in a row. It's
Yeah.
crazy how football is you. But yeah, sorry, this feels like therapy right now. I've just spoken at you. But how do you feel about Rosinia?
Well, so when he first came in, I mean, I wasn't excited about the appointment. Same way I wasn't really excited when Maresca was appointed either, to be honest, because I did feel like with Pochettino, we were starting to see where the more experienced manager could turn things around. And so with Maresca, it was, unknown, only managed at Leicester. Yes, he had worked with Pep, and there was a lot of high profile about that, but there's nothing about him that got me excited. And from his
Mhm.
first season and a half, I'll be honest, I was not fully convinced by him. He showed he was capable of beating the big teams, which was nice. Last season, we didn't beat Ipswich. This season, we lost to Man U, lost to Sunderland, lost to Leeds. Like, there were several games where it felt like he couldn't figure out how to beat those mid to lower table sides. And those are the ones you should be beating if you want to win the league. So I just didn't see us winning the league with him in charge. So when he left, I'll admit, I wasn't broken up about it. I was frustrated that we're changing manager again, but it felt more like an indictment on just how things are at the moment, where he didn't feel like he was backed at this club. He didn't really buy into the project. And so he decided, I'm done. With Rosignor coming in, obviously he's also a young manager, lot to prove, don't really know what to expect with him. And he started pretty well. He's winning the games he should be winning, but then he wasn't. Against Arsenal, we crapped the bed twice. So it was kind of almost a role reversal where we're probably going to be beating the teams we should be, but against the big teams, who knows? And then we draw against Leeds and Burnley, we lose to Newcastle, lose to Everton, and now all of a sudden it feels like we're not going to beat anybody. I think if you're going to have a young manager in charge for a long time, it's got to be one with a connection to the club that is going to buy into the project. And I think we saw that with Maresca. He was not happy a season and a half in, and so that's why he decided he was done and left the club. I think if you got somebody in, I'm not saying Lampard is the option because we saw he's not quite ready for this level, but I think maybe him and Terry, because I know Terry is wanting to get into management as well. I think you give them time, you bring in these resources that we're seeing, that's where maybe there's a possibility to grow, because the recruitment is probably the one thing about this club that the board has done well, in my opinion, because they've actually brought in some quality talent here. Now, they haven't filled in all the gaps, and that's where I think, unfortunately, there are still gaps in the transfer team.
Vaping gaps, if you ask me, but yeah.
Defense is definitely an issue that I personally have. But you look at a lot of the young quality that they are bringing in, and there's a lot of good players here. They just don't have that togetherness that I think a club needs to be successful. And that's why we see so much inconsistency right now. So that's where I think if you bring in some legends of the club, a Lampard, a Terry, a Fabregas, somebody like that can bring these players together, I think that's, for me, the best possible chance of this style of ownership working out. Where you're just going to bring in a bunch of young talent and try to get them to be together, but they've not done that. They've just brought in these managers that don't have any connection to the club. One manager that had a connection to a rival club, and ultimately you're not going to see a gaggle of players that have been brought together, even if they are mega talented. You're not going to see them work together, in my opinion. So that's just kind of my own thoughts, because I haven't really had a chance to discuss my thoughts either on my channel for a little bit. For Senior, though, do you see him lasting the rest of the season? Do you think he's going to be gone by the end of the season? Like, I know the board just backed him, but we've seen other boards back managers that are gone the next week. What are your thoughts on him going forward?
He'll stay. I think Rosinia stays. I think he stays. He's in at summer. I think he starts next season. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if he sees out next season, seriously, because I think these owners are at a point right now where they've got someone in who is proven to work with them. Obviously at Strasbourg, pretty happy with him. And again, Rosinia wouldn't have had any complaints at Strasbourg. He was quite happy to take that job, you know, again, something to brighten up his CV. He arguably did a decent job there. I think they had pretty much one of their best seasons under him as well. But, you know, he wasn't going to demand too much. Arguably that was the best, well, he had some of the best players that he's worked with, and I think the fact that he gets on with them is a big green flag. It's a tick tick tick. I think Maresca maybe demanded a little bit too much towards the end. Pochettino fell out with them, and that breakdown in relations is arguably your make or break, is whether you stay or go. So I think Rosinia won't fall out with them. What more really is to demand? You know, it's not exactly like he's particularly had anything to moan about. He's quite a good talker. I feel like he could continue talking to the end of his tenure, but really it's like you have to once again admit that you've got it wrong, and I don't think they can afford to do that right now, especially with how much heat there is, especially when we are now seeing how many decisions have just gone backwards, how many decisions they're clearly not fit enough to make. And you know, we've spoken a lot about the sporting directors as well, and I think it's quite interesting that you are quite happy with recruitment, because I'd say that is again one of our bigger downfalls. It's like you looked away from signing experience, and that's just such a massive thing. Like, look at every Premier League winning team in the last 20 years and tell me one team that had the caliber of like young players with that little experience playing together that went on to win the league without having those absolute icons, or like 3-4 players that have been in and around the team and have just really been consistent throughout for 38 Premier League games. And I know all players aren't going to come good. They're going to be hot and cold. You know, we've been quite lucky to have a gem like Cole Palmer, who even with his drop off and his injuries here and there has still arguably like maintained a high level of football, and I'd still say he is absolutely brilliant. You look at Moises Caicedo, I know he's had his dips, but also has been a very consistent performer. Yes, those players are just, I can count them on my one hand, but that's exactly the issue. And you talk about defence, you talk about goalkeeper, those are recruitment decisions that were completely brushed under the carpet, because Robert Sanchez, and I keep reminding everyone, was signed as a number 2 goalkeeper, but Kepa left for his loan and he was instantly promoted at number 1, and we never looked at that again. So Robert Sanchez was never even supposed to be a number 1, yet now he is arguably the best we have. And obviously he's flawed in many ways. You'd argue he's the best keeper at the club, so he has to start, but is that really where we're at? And I always said, Sanchez won't win you a league. He might get you into top 4, but ultimately still not good enough. And again, he was never brought in to be number 1. So you look at goalkeepers that were around at the time and we never even addressed them. I said we needed a centre-back before Levi Colwill got injured last summer. That's how far back we're talking. Yet since then, we've had more injuries, we've had other like rotations and players coming in and out. Not a sustainable back line. You don't win a Premier League with that back line, that goalkeeping gaping hole that we have there, and the amount of points we've dropped. And it's actually so bad because I've defended Sanchez in so many games and said that the defence let him down of a clean sheet, and then there's games where it's vice versa. So how many games, if we look across the season, can you pick out defensive errors and massive goalkeeping errors that have just combined to drop us points? Honestly, I think someone should do a survey on this, because I'm pretty sure it's like half our points that we've dropped, maybe even more this season.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not going to outscore your opponents every time. That just doesn't happen, especially with the teams that we're going to play. So again, I think recruitment has been a bit of a letdown. Yes, we've been excited at some of the prospects, but again, you look at attack, spending like 100 million on Garnacho and Gittins, for example, when you could have gone out and signed just a world-class like winger, or like someone like Kvaratskhelia, who was available like the year before PSG signed him. So it's like there's so much. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it annoys me because you don't. Like, Thiago Silva left. That's it. Our defense was just it just went to hell, really.
Yep.
So it's difficult, you know. Players are hot and cold, they're inconsistent, but that's the project that you wanted, right? But it's not going to prosper if they don't have those leaders that can be consistent throughout the course of the games, that when you're losing, won't just lose their heads and go and argue with the ref, but will say, actually, just literally like restart the game, pull your socks up and go for it. Stop complaining about every decision. Stop just losing your head. Stop getting needless yellow cards, okay? And just get on with it, because we don't have those players. players anymore, and it's a real big miss. And I don't honestly, Mason, like looking at it, I don't know where we get those players from. Reece James is arguably our only proper Chelsea from the
Hmm.
past, and that's it. That is really it. So I don't think we'll ever. Well, okay, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but at least for the next 5 years, we're not going to have a team of the past that we were so like closely like affiliated with the team, like our Terry's, Lampard's, Drogba's, like all the guys that made me fall in love with watching like football when I was 7, right? So I think it's a shame, but I just think that's and there's going to be a turnover. How long do you think Cole Palmer and Enzo will stay? By the way, that's a question I'll leave for you.
Well, it's a very good question. I did want to clarify one thing just because I realize when I say that the recruitment's been good, I realize that does sound
Yeah,
like I'm
I get
saying
it. No,
like,
like there has been some good, of course, some good
well,
recruitment. It's not
what I
all
mean
bad.
more so by recruitment is like the scouting team, like the players we're bringing in, the young players are good. Like we're bringing in some
Esteban,
quality.
yeah,
It's when I say recruitment, I'm not so much talking about the transfers team. Like that's
okay.
where the transfer strategy, I agree, has been awful. Like I said from the very beginning, when they said it was all about bringing in youth, not bringing in experience, I think they said nobody above the age of 26. Like that for me, I went, no, that's not going to work, and unfortunately, it hasn't. Scouting wise, I remember because I talked a little bit about this with Matt whenever I did a collab with him. There were some players that we didn't get that we were looking at that we were looking into, and they were not very well known. And that was John Duran and Samu Omaradian, or Omaradian. I don't remember how to pronounce it now.
Um,
But those are two players, nobody was really looking at them. And then the next season, after we were looking at them and didn't get them, they go on fire and they blow up that season. So, recruitment wise, when you're looking at how we're scouting players, when you're looking at the young players we're bringing in, there's a lot of talent there. Unfortunately, as you said, we're not bringing in the experience needed to help those players grow. There's a lot of discipline problems because of that, like you said. So, yeah, it's the transfer strategy for me that has more so been something that needs to change. But as far as the whole Enzo and Palmer situation, because there have been a lot of stories about this, and most of the time I take a lot of these stories with grains of salt, mostly because I feel like the modern day football journalist, they're there to write stories that get the clicks, that get people talking. I remember when Palmer was linked with Man U, I shook my head and said, there's no way. Like if he's leaving, he's going to a big name. I'm thinking Real Madrid. He's going to maybe Man City to go back there and try to prove himself. I don't see him going to Man U, honestly. I know
never
he's in
say
Manchester.
never. Never say never.
It seems very unlikely. Obviously, Enzo
Mm.
has made his feelings very clear about wanting to go play for Real Madrid. So does that happen? Possibly. Ultimately, what it's going to come down to is the board's feelings about, I guess, how the transfers are going. Because a lot of people describe them as they're a buying and selling club. And while I see that, I think we do that with a lot of, you think about some of these players we're bringing in for like 5 million and then selling them for 30. Like I think that's more so where their idea for buying and selling is coming from. They do realize if they want to be a successful financial club, they have to be successful on the pitch. I think the strategy of how they want to get there is where they've really screwed up, because I don't think
Mm.
their transfer strategy and the managers that they've been bringing, I don't think that's getting us to be successful. That's where I do disagree with some people who say that they're only in it for the financials. They don't care about winning. I think anybody knows you win, you make more money. I mean, we saw that at the Club World Cup too. How they want to get there, that I think is flawed, that they need to realize. But yeah, so for Enzo and Palmer, I mean, if the right offer comes in, which I think is probably going to be upwards of 120 million, more than likely, I think maybe then we see that, but I don't really see them selling them before the contract is up for less than 100 million, because I,
Mm.
not saying it's impossible, but I feel like it's highly unlikely because they do realize that these players are big names at the club. They're very talented players. They're players that, I mean, they sell jerseys too, and that's going to be a financial motive for them to keep them around too. So if they force a move, maybe. If they're not happy here, maybe. I do feel like the board's probably going to try to keep them around. I mean, we saw they just signed James on to a longer deal, so I think they are trying to keep around our best players for as long as they possibly can.
Oh, well, because they're the ones who are going to save him, if anything, if that's even possible in some case. But yeah, you absolutely can't let players like that go. I mean, look, I think it's all about they were all obviously invited to believe that this so-called projects, we keep calling it, is going to be prosperous in the next couple of years, and they're all going to be a big part of it. All promised minutes, like Enzo Caicedo pretty much played every available minute to them. Cole Palmer, when fit, again, every available minute for him. And a player like Cole Palmer, who knows how good he is, backed himself to leave Man City because he knew he could be a consistent performer, came and literally turned into a Premier League superstar in his first season at Chelsea, right? You know, you talk about Real Madrid, but he goes there right now and I don't think he actually starts. He won't get minutes like he would at Chelsea if he's available every minute. So I guess that comes into play. Obviously, one day that could be different, but right now they are absolutely stacked in that department, and there's a wealth of talent in those kind of attacking roles. So that's not maybe a concern for right now. In the Premier League, though, I mean, I can't think of anything worse than having to face Cole Palmer when we're in the depths fighting mid-table every single season. You got Cole Palmer scoring against you, but yeah, it is really difficult. And again, there'll be a turnover in the summer, no doubt. There are players, obviously, you know, like Badia Schill and Tosin, who might move on. You've got players like Mark Gue, who I don't think is particularly intent on staying either, which again, fine, like what do you really do with him? He could be playing elsewhere. Right, and there's still plenty to be excited about as well. Equally, like we could sit here and sort of tell you our favourite starting 11 team and be excited about it, right? You know, like obviously without the goalkeeper and the defence as much, but you know, at least in your fullbacks like Mark Correa and Reece James, you know, having Enzo Caicedo, like Palmer, a fully fit Joao Pedro scoring goals, and Esteval, who's still sort of yet to build like consistent minutes and get back into the team. So there is a lot of talent. This is the problem, but still you've got the missing pieces of them learning from experience. And you still see like Esteval is an absolutely incredible kid, like wonder kid, right? But even still, you see that inexperience come through in glimpses, right, where he like does make the needless foul. Where like, mate, in the Premier League you're not going to get away with that, like it can't be this way. And there's certain moments where he might lose his cool or whatever. And again, these are just things that are so precious and come from experience. And I guess they might argue at the start they did go down that avenue and we had like Aubameyang and Sterling come in, but I'd argue that that was completely wrong because Sterling had already been past his best. Like Pep knew what he was doing when he let Sterling move on, right? He was like, here you go, Chelsea, you can have the leftovers because that's what you're getting. And then Arsenal got the leftovers of the leftovers. With all due respect, great like player on paper, 4 Premier League titles. You're thinking, wow, that takes you to the next level in terms of attack. Like Aubameyang, again, proven goal scorer, but it just didn't quite happen that way. And again, like it goes back to Thomas Tuchel, and we can have all the revisionism there as well. And I know Tuchel had flaws as well, and our run towards the end was not amazing. But yeah, it's so difficult because you just see what a caliber, a high profile manager can really do, like with a group of players and the ideas that he can have. Yeah, so unfortunately it just feels like we're in a bit of a cycle here that it feels like there's kind of no way out. Because yeah, I mean, I like you, I'm sure you're the same. I want to win a Premier League title. Like even I look at the Champions League and I'm like, fabulous, but we won that 4 years ago. And again, you obviously want to win a Champions League, it's the best out there. But for me, if you ask me like which one do you want the most, it's obviously the Premier League, right? It's, you know, it's been a decade. So yeah,
well, and honestly, yeah, well, honestly, something that because for Tuchel, like as much as the Champions League victory was huge, I always felt like in the league we were going to struggle because I mean Mourinho talked about it a lot. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and I felt like Tuchel, he was good at the sprint. He was good at helping us win those matches. Like we beat Real Madrid like twice. He was very good in those quick like one-off games in the Champions League, but in the league, I remember both seasons with him, we finished top 4, but it was because the teams around us kept dropping points. You know, it wasn't because we were doing well and getting ourselves up in the top 4 comfortably. So like you, I would like to see us challenge for the title again. I would like to see us be the champions of the league again, because that is something that it's impressive to do over a long season, to be successful and not just in the moments, in the overall. It's much more satisfying, I think.
And we've been a moment team, haven't we?
Absolutely.
We have been a moment, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I guess something we could talk about before we move on to talking maybe a little bit more about the board itself is the team, because you know we've already discussed it a little bit. There are good players here. There are gaps in the team. personally, I guess just to give my thoughts, I look at this team and go, we are two good center backs and a goalkeeper away from, in my opinion, being a not necessarily a title winning side, but a title challenging side. Like I think James and Cucurella at fullback, Caicedo and Fernandez at center mid, Palmer, Esteval, Neto, Pedro. Those are solid players. Now the depth we lack, maybe that would hurt us in the long run, and that's why we might not win the title. But I think if you put two good center backs, one with experience hopefully, and then a good keeper that can inspire confidence in the defense, I think for me that is where we go from we're fighting for top 4 to now we're fighting for the title. And then once we get a bit more quality coming off the bench, not having to rely on players like Garnacho. Once we get to that point, that's where I think we can truly win the title. For you, like, do you have the same opinion, or are there other areas that you think we could improve on?
Yeah, I agree with you. Goalkeeping and defense needs to improve drastically, and it's such a big difference. Like, you look at the goals we've conceded, how many of them have been gifts, like just flat out gifts, like here you go, and just so down to poor defending at times, like drawing comparisons to like literally no offense, but like non-league like football. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how can that be a professional like first team, like playing in one of the best leagues, literally arguably the best league in the world? Like, how could that possibly be your one-on-one defending in that situation? So again, huge problem there. I'd argue maybe even like bringing in a world-class winger, like, or just a goal-scoring winger. I think we need more goals from our wingers, because you know, it's been great. Joao Pedro's been getting most of the goals. You know, we've had kind of goals elsewhere. Like Enzo has also scored quite a few goals for us this season. The odd defender here and there, maybe. Neto, though, I feel like I love his work ethic and I love what he's about. But Neto was never a goal-scoring winger. Not before he signed at Chelsea, not at Wolves. Never was a goal-scoring winger. He's like more of like a kind of creator. He can like dribble. He's very quick, and that kind of makes you feel like there's a lot happening. But actually, output has really been lacking, and I feel like it's a real letdown, and I think it actually takes away from the attack a little bit at times, because it's just like spamming crosses left, right and centre, and at some point you just kind of you get fed up with it a little bit. But then you look at Esteval, could he maybe play out on the left? You know, if you were to have somebody else out on the right, or you know, if you did want to go more attacking and use like Enzo Fernandez in the advanced kind of 10 role and stick Palmer out on the right and have Joao Pedro there. Like, there are options, but I'm not sold on Gittins. I'm not sold on Garnacho. Who else have we got? Like, I'm not, in terms of like your best team, and then the drop off is kind of quite stark with what we've got on the bench, if that makes sense. So again, I'd probably argue, after all the wingers we've brought in the world, that we probably could go and sign another winger as well. Defense and goalkeeper is the absolute top of the to-do list. It has been forever. It's like, how on earth, you know? And just look at the goalkeepers we've had in the past and the goalkeeper we have now. Like, even Jorgensen starting against the best team in the world, against one of the attacks that will press you non-stop and like literally make you like have nightmares about that for the rest of the week. I mean, it's
Yeah.
And how much can you blame Jorgensen? Why is he in that position in the first place too?
Yeah, I had a bit of a tirade after, because we had seen Tottenham do the exact same thing, bring in a young keeper with no experience.
I laughed, Nathan. I don't know about you, but I laughed, and then I was crying the next day.
Exactly. Oh God, it was rough. But that's something I think, unfortunately, we've had a slew of managers in that want their keepers to play with their feet. And unfortunately, a lot of the keepers that play with their feet are not good goalkeepers. Like, that's just what I've seen. Outside of, I would say, Ederson, most of the keepers that are good with their feet, whenever it comes to shot stopping, I mean, Onana was brought in at Man U because he was good with his feet, and look at what happened with him. I remember when we were looking at Maignan, I watched his game against, it was France versus Spain, where Spain won 5-2. I was watching him going, he might be good with his feet, but is he a good shot stopper? I don't see it. That's where, unfortunately, I think I would like us to move on from that ideology of the keeper has to play out with his feet. When Sanchez hasn't been asked to do that, he's looked like a competent keeper that can be successful for us. But
well, that's true, because I mean, there's some great like examples of, him sort of playing some long balls that have led to like goals and stuff, or like using the momentum of hitting a team on a break. I feel like we lose so much of our game trying to just slow down, let everybody reset, and then it's kind of rolled into Chalobah or Fofana, and it's the same thing on repeat, and
Yep.
it's like it's just so boring. And I absolutely agree with you. And obviously he's been instructed to play that way, but just needs to have a little bit more, fire. Like just go for it sometimes. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So as far as players that I haven't done a whole lot of research on this, but if you had any ideas looking at maybe defenders or keepers in the Premier League and other leagues you would like to see come in that could give us some help back there.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I was a big advocate for Donnarumma when he was out and available for us to sign him. I've always rated him highly as a keeper, and I think again, looking even beyond his goalkeeping ability, he's been around and he's played some very high level games, and he understands it being in those kind of high pressure situations, playing against teams that will press high. So I think he would have been a very good addition for us. I wasn't opposed to Mike Mignon, but I do also understand where the flaws are, and a lot of people say he's way past his best, but even still such an upgrade on anything that we've had in the last kind of couple years. Defenders, I mean, again, it was always an obvious one, but I think I made maybe about 5-6 videos about why we should sign Mark Gehi over like the last couple years as well, because again, he was one of my favourite players to watch at the Euros for England. I think he kind of single-handedly carried us through some of the games when our superstars didn't shine, and he's a great leader, and he's no longer fitting in that young potential category. He is quite proven, and yes, bit of a difficult start maybe at City, but still like so much there to show he could have been better for us. And I know it's quite difficult because we talk about experienced defenders, and right now out there it's not like you've got the most kind of high profile like experienced centre backs really available. Like, I mean, who is going to be available in summer? You have to ask yourself. It's a tricky one, to be honest, but yeah, I don't know, have you got any shouts?
Well, I know because Silva was a free agent in January. I was really hoping we'd bring him back, just even if he's not quite at that level anymore. He's such an
I
experienced
think
head
he
to
would
have.
be still.
I agree. I've always liked defenders more so like a Silva, ones that read the game well. A bit of a hot take, but I prefer a defender like that over a Van Dijk, who is a, physical beast.
I don't think that's a hot take at all, to be honest.
Like, I really thought our best defensive pairing that we've had since the days of Terry and Cahill was Silva and Rudiger, because you had Rudiger, who was the physical beast, but you also had Silva, who could control like the defense because he was experienced. He read the game very well. Yeah, I don't really know a lot of the defenders that are out there that are on that type of level that command the back line well. Honestly, there are some defenders I look at that are more, they're mid-table level when you look at their actual defensive qualities, but they look like leaders. I think about some of the guys that are at clubs like a Palace, like at Everton, like in Newcastle. Some of those guys, do I think they're the quality of Premier League winners? Not quite. But could that experience in the dressing room, could they bring maybe some of that quality to the players that we have here that are top level? Because I look at, Fofana, I think he's got the quality to be a top level defender, but his mentality is so awful. The goal he gave up against Newcastle where he let Gordon run past him, I mean, that's the type of mentality that holds him back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That there is a question to be asked, and I know that's not something I think a lot of us want to think about, is do we need to go poach defenders from mid-table sides? But I think there is something to that, where if you bring in a player who's been around the Premier League for a while and is a leader, there's a potential for them to come into the dressing room and possibly bring that defense together and bring players that are good quality but just not leaders together. But moving on from players, now we could talk about our favorite thing at Chelsea right now, and that's the board. Because, yeah, I mean, we've already discussed it at length. A lot of questions about where we're going to go next with them in charge. I think we can all agree that we started very poorly with Potter, and he was just not the right appointment. And I think, I don't know exactly what the mindset was with him. I don't know what the thinking was. I think they just saw a young manager that's doing pretty well in the Premier League and thought, sure, let's give it a shot. But with Pochettino, did you see any potential with him going forward as far as like possibly taking us back up into the top?
To be honest, I mean, again, like I said, I was kind of hopelessly Poch in until the very end. More so, not like you said with Maresca that you were really a big fan of like him as a manager, but more so because I was just so scared and apprehensive about changing the manager again. And I think, and I still believe, Pochettino probably had one of the best relationships with the players as well in terms of like the managers we've had in the past. And I'm quite, I mean, just in terms of my own values, I really like highly regard relationships in terms of like personnel and how you sort of work together, like in any environment, working with like getting on with the people and having that mutual respect is just such
Mhm.
a it's such an important factor in being a successful institution. And I really like just thought after all that change and all that turnover, the turmoil, the how horrid everything was in 22-23, like I thought this could actually be quite a positive thing for the players to work with Poch. So I think that was more so what I was after as opposed to Poch as a manager. I think at times again it was just so that it just felt like we had no identity under Pochettino. It felt at times like, you know, it felt like he was freestyling a lot of our play. Like I couldn't tell you kind of what the tactical approach was game in game out, and what the little tweaks were from one game to managing under a different opponent. Whereas under Maresca, I could actually kind of see the thought process behind some of the decisions. So I never really understood Pochettino's philosophy, to be honest, when he was here. I'd say I was quite happy in the end when, you know, obviously we had like links to Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique, and those were short lived, and that was actually kind of the exciting thing behind it. But then obviously that quickly, very quickly, died down after. But yeah, to be honest with you, I think under all the managers we've had in and since the new regime, Maresca was probably the one I was kind of most keen on
Mm.
in the end. And yeah, I know people say like Maresca, like you wasn't perfect. Again, slim credentials arriving with all that, but I liked his passion. I thought I've seen just a little bit more. He obviously like loved the group as well, and we had some great moments with him. And again, like I just value that, and I don't see it from Rosini. And I know it's so hard to like form an affinity with a manager. Like I haven't loved a manager since Tuchel, you know. And there's so many I've loved in my lifetime, which just again tells you like how far away we are from that. So it's difficult. And again, like Rosini is just the surface level of the problem, to be honest. He's just at the forefront, and every manager will get called out. Do you know what I mean? It's like because
Mhm.
he's at the front, and I know that some of the decisions have been, you know, awful. Like you don't change your goalkeepers, like you change your outfield players. When I heard him say that, I think that was for me one of those moments where I went, "Yeah, cool, I know what we're getting with you," and yeah, it's just, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, just uninspiring, really.
So I guess from Pochettino, obviously we managed to make Conference League that year. Maresca comes in. There is maybe a bit more excitement just because he does have that connection with Pep. I know a lot of people were really excited about that. We did have some quality players coming in as well that season. It just kind of feels like we went from we were here with Potter, then improved, and then now we're kind of back down to where we were with Poch, where we just every week who knows what we're going to get. I guess the question in all of this is if we are going to improve, does it need to be just a complete removal of the board? Do we need to get certain people like maybe the sporting directors out? Where do you think the biggest problem in the board lies at the moment?
Yeah, I think I'm all for change. I think what's bigger than that though is what's the plan? Like what is the plan? Because it's all fun and saying we like can they sell, can they go, but then what happens after? And I think that's what people maybe are actually kind of not really like considering too much, because it's like yeah, we can vote them out. Well, we can't vote them out, but we can, you know, voice our concerns that we want them out and then we want them to sell, but what happens next?
Mm-hmm.
Who comes in? Like what does that look like? Where does Chelsea's kind of future lie? So I think it's more about fine, like we can have the protests. Obviously, there's the Manchester United game that's coming up, and there's the Strasbourg group who's coming from France to, I'm sure you're aware of that, to
Mm-hmm.
like march with the Chelsea fans and hopefully like show the Chelsea fans how you do it. Because let me tell you, the protests that we've had before like the Brentford game, like Southampton last year, have just been nothing short of nothing, quite literally. Like a few fans gathered before saying we hate Tottenham, Blue Co out, and world champions, and it's like, well, what's the message here? Because
Hmm.
they're laughing. For me, the sporting directors have been a big issue, because again, it's like you keep making decisions that are clearly backfiring, and you're trusting those people to make the next decision. So actually, that could be a first area to look at to change, because again, it's like, can you trust them to make another decision that will work out? Todd Bowley's a funny one, because obviously, you know, he was at the forefront of it. When he came in, he was kind of face first, speaking to everyone, and you obviously know that he was a sporting director shortly or whatever, and he just makes me laugh. I mean, I've seen him out and about at Stamford Bridge, but again, it's like Egbali has often been the one to be criticized more, and I think that obviously he's the one that has the bigger calls, and he is again ultimately the quieter operator who doesn't actually come out and really get to see anyone to get to see him. But I think ultimately, if something doesn't change at the top, nothing on the pitch or in the club, like below the hierarchy, will. So yeah, I'm all for it. I just cannot propose to you like a rational plan B to what happens next, and I think that's a problem. So we need to decide, or like kind of figure out, not that we're again the ones deciding, but we need to have an actual idea of what it is we want next, if that
Hmm.
makes sense, and how we can head in a better direction. But yeah, change at the top is a must. Like, something needs to change.
Well, and I think it's interesting you bring that up because that's something that I can't remember when I talked about it, but I also discussed like if we just get Blueco out, who knows what we get next, you know? And
Mhm.
as much as people want to say we're in dire straits at the moment, it could be worse. You know, we could look at Tottenham at the moment. Like it could get worse from
Oh,
here.
right. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Well, I do think I agree that we as fans, it's all fine to say we're upset with the board, we're criticizing the board. That's where the divide in the fan base right now is at the most. Is some people just want to remove the board, and some people are saying we don't really have an idea of what we're going to get after that. So how about we focus on trying to change certain things? How about we protest the sporting directors? We try to get Lawrence and Winstanley out because they have not done their jobs well. As much as we can say we want this guy to leave, we want this manager to leave, we want this player, we can also say we want the sporting directors to leave because they're not handling their jobs. I do agree that we as fans probably, if we're going to do these protests, if there's going to be these big, massive outcries, let's focus in on what do we actually want to change? What will make the club better? So 100% agree about that. As far as the protests in Strasbourg, I guess get some of your thoughts on that real quick. Like, do you sympathize with them? Do you say, you know, hey, you're a feeder club? Like that's what happens with feeder clubs. Sometimes you get that end of the stick, but you also get some of the benefits, you know, of players going there and helping you. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like, you know, it would be unfair for me to like judge them and say, like, have an actual opinion when I'm not really like that in the loop with, you know, their performances, their games, like how their sort of culture is at the club. But from a surface like kind of level and outside looking in, I'd say they have just kind of been caught up in the whole fire of being our sisterhood club, and a lot of decisions that have been kind of made have also stripped from their identity a little bit, and all of like their core values as a club and as a fan base. So I sympathise with that. I will maybe say, and again, like Strasbourg fans, call me out if I'm wrong on this, but they have also enjoyed some good moments. You know, kind of fighting in and around those European spots, and also beating like a team like PSG in France as well. Like, they've had some good moments, but again, we literally grabbed their manager mid-season and said, "Sort yourselves out. You can have, what is it, Gary O'Neill at the wheel." And I just think, and obviously now they are kind of, you know, they are in the know of how this operation's going to run, because guess what? Who's our next manager after Rosinia? Well, it's Gary O'Neill from Strasbourg. So, you know, I think that they can actually see that obviously Chelsea is like priority here, and they just kind of like are, you know, caught up in it. So I do sympathise. I think they've had quite a proactive, I guess, sort of method of consistently like voicing their concerns prior to match days. I think, you know, they had quite a few games where they didn't like go into the game at the start, or missed out like 10 or 15 minutes, which is, I guess, quite a powerful like way to voice your concern. And yeah, I guess two clubs coming together to make some noise could probably be beneficial. But yeah, I do sympathise with them a little bit. It's just like, don't worry guys, we're not happy with them either. We get it.
Well, on that, which will lead into probably the final talking point, I will also say, similar to us removing Blueco, it could be worse. Look
Mhm.
at Tottenham. I will say for their side as well, and I know I'm not trying to like defend Blueco and what they're doing to them, but it could also be worse for them because what comes to mind is what happened with Vitesse, because they were very much our sister club under Abramovich, and now they don't even exist anymore. So at the very least, it seems like Blueco is taking care of them financially as well. There have been a lot of back and forth between the clubs and player sales that have benefited both
We
clubs.
have also kind of, sorry to interrupt you, but we have, like you said, just pretty much used them as like I guess a training facility as well for some of our players. Like,
Yeah.
like Andre Santos got snapped straight away after he started sort of, hitting the ground running as well. And it's like they kind of feel like they're not destined to have their own success, and whatever works there is just coming kind of straight to Chelsea. So yeah, you can understand from that perspective.
Yeah, I would
It's not
assume that the plan is, and obviously I'm not going to speak for the board because I don't know if there actually is a plan, but I would assume the plan is if they do start to get that level of success, because obviously with the new multi-club ownership rules in place, if they make Champions League, they wouldn't be in Champions League. So I would assume that once they get to that point, then maybe Blueco looks to sell, to an owner who wants to run a Champions League club. I could be wrong about that. Like I said, this will lead into the final talking point, which is kind of the financial side of things. It's something that I've not done a deep dive into, but obviously one of the big talking points was the FA charges hit. We've got the fine, we've got the transfer ban that's going to be suspended for 2 years as long as we do what we're supposed to in FFP, and then our academy ban as well. And so that is where, as much as obviously we want to look at all the bad stuff the board has done, I think there's some perspective now. Because I mean, I grew up under the Abramovich era. I loved watching the games. I loved watching us win. There is an asterisk now, it feels like, because we're seeing where the board has come in. They've shown some of what he was doing behind the scenes and some of what his board staff were doing behind the scenes. And now we're facing the punishment for it. So kind of just want to get your thoughts on that. I know we don't really want to bash Abramovich too much. Can we take some of the positives that it feels like this current ownership is trying to play by the rules financially so we don't have to deal with points deductions and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no financial expert again, so take this with a very pinch of salt. But yeah, I think with the whole like transfer ban thing, I think the timing of it was just so fitting. It was like midweek of the worst time of our lives, isn't it? It's like, now what? But ultimately, I don't think it directly really affects us so much. Yeah, of course, there's repercussions from like under Roman and whatever business happened there. Again, it's like, gosh, Chelsea fans are kind of quiet on commenting too much about that. And like you say, I'm literally, I get called an Abramovich baby, and I'm like, it's not my fault. I was born the year he took over. Like, what do you want me to be? This is who I am. So yeah, it's quite funny. But to be honest, like we've been hit quite a lot in terms of like, obviously we had a actual like physical transfer ban like under Lampard and stuff, and we kind of felt the repercussions then. Obviously that was quite a different scenario, but and this isn't quite the same as like an academy transfer ban, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? So not quite the same. But yeah, look, I think and partly why again I sort of bought into like the owners' ideology as well, is at the start obviously like they found quite a few like loopholes as well that we were quite impressed with, like the whole like extending the contracts out for like 7, 8, 9 years, and actually kind of managing that quite nicely. At the start felt like, oh, this is a green flag, and now it kind of feels like, oh, actually though there are obviously some hidden like motives for them as well. And I still believe a lot of that is purposely just profit, of
Mm-hmm.
generating sales. And it's like when they sell Cole Palmer, it's just gonna be like, oh, tick, like profit made. Or when they sell like, I don't know, Garnacho, to even like make a profit on him from like what 50, 45 million, I don't know. But yeah, but to be honest, right now I think our main concern is just what's happening on the pitch, and the truth is it's very, very, very dull. And yeah, few games left, but still to play 3 teams sat above us in the league, still to play teams that have tripped us up in the league this season. So I'm not really feeling too confident,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Right there with you. I think ultimately the reason I even bring that up is mostly because, like you said, as fans, we look at what's on the pitch. We see what's on the pitch and we focus on that. And obviously right now what we're seeing is the product of 4 or 5 years now of mismanagement. as far as the players we're bringing in, as far as the managers we're bringing in. I guess it's kind of to play a little bit of devil's advocate, but also to show that not everything is bad, which is, again, going to the idea of we don't necessarily need to get the owners removed because they are at least doing the financial side of things correctly. They're making sure we're not going to face a 10-point deduction like some of the other clubs in the Premier League have. But yeah, 100% agree that we as fans, we see what's on the pitch and we're not happy with that. And that is where things need to change immediately because it's been too much of the same for the past 4 years. Final thoughts, any words of encouragement, anything that you can look at and say, hey, let's have a good time or anything along those lines?
Maybe outside of Chelsea, yes. I hope everyone's got enough good things going on in their life to keep them entertained and happy because I know football, for a lot of us fans, is the source, the happiness provider, and we love football and that's why we go. But right now it feels just so far from I'm not looking forward to it. We've got Port Vale at the weekend and even that could be tricky, so I don't know. But yeah, look, ultimately we are fans of the club. I always say we're Blues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bleed blue. I don't really have a lot of hopeful, optimistic words, so hopefully everyone watching maybe has something nice to say, but I imagine a lot of the comments are going to be echoing our thoughts from this whole stream, to be honest.
I'm also, because I live in Georgia, so I'm not an MLS fan, but hope that the hometown team does pretty well, and Atlanta United has just been awful for the past 5-6 years, so I've got nothing to look forward to when it comes to football, so that's been fun. And of course the World Cup coming up, I mean, we just got thrashed by Belgium, so it's not a fun time to watch football for me at the moment, but that's why I have fun talking to other content creators and making connections and all that stuff. So Therapy, exactly. So thank you so much for coming on, Nina. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully we'll be getting a lot more people on in the future as well and having a lot more collab videos because it's definitely a lot of fun, as you said, to have these therapy sessions and just talk about everything that frustrates us and get it off our chest. But thank you guys so much for watching. With all that being said, cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more Chelsea previews, reviews, and talks. Also, let me know what your thoughts are down below, whether you agree, disagree, or just want to call me stupid. Let me know, we can talk about it, discuss all that good stuff. Also, if you want to hear me talk about TV shows and movies that I like, check out my channel Mason the Brock Henderson, where I upload reviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As well as if you want to watch me play through video games and try to make it entertaining for you, I have a Let's Play channel, Meso Hendo Plays, where I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Also, if you do want to help me grow this channel, I do have a Patreon where all the funds and donations will go directly into improving this channel's quality. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, and up the Chels.